Twitter Feed is a web-based tool that enables you to tweet about new blog posts as they're released. Twitter Feed works with RSS feeds that are automatically generated by most blog software. You create a Twitter Feed account, then tell Twitter Feed about your blog and how often it should check for new content. When it finds new posts, it creates a tweet on your Twitter account with a link to the post. If you have a WordPress.com blog, you may want to check out its built-in tools for interacting with Twitter. I tell you about them in another video. As you'll see in this video, however, Twitter Feed works with any blog that creates an RSS feed, including a self-hosted WordPress site, Blogger, and even Tumblr. In our example, Stacy has a WordPress.com blog, and we'll set up Twitter Feed to work with that. So let's start off by going to twitterfeed.com and setting up a new account. I'm going to click the Register Now button. The sign-up form asks for some basic information, your email address, your password, and then a confirmation of the same password. So what we'll do is we'll put in Stacy's email address. And then her password for an account on this system. I want to type the same thing twice. If you want to get email from these folks to find out about updates for the service and things like that, you would turn on this checkbox. Click Create Account. Now the first thing it wants to know is the name of the feed. So you would type in the name of the blog or any kind of name that you wanted to use to identify it. So Stacy's blog is called Stacy's Ramblings, and that's what we'll call this. The next thing you need down here is the feed URL. Now the feed URL is pretty standardized, but what we'll do to make sure we got the right one is that we'll go to Stacy's website and we'll make sure we copy the correct one. So just go to the home page of your website, and somewhere on there you should see an RSS feed icon or a link to subscribe to the feed or something like that. So when you point to that and you look down at the status bar on your screen, if the status bar is displayed, you can see the exact URL to that. You can also right-click with your mouse and you can copy the link location. What this does is it copies that link's location, which is the one we need, into your clipboard. I'll go back to Twitter Feed, and I've already got the insertion point in there. So again, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to click Paste. And that just copied it right in there. That's a good way to do it because then you'll know that you've got it exactly right. And this is an active site, so make sure the active is turned on, and I can test that feed. So it checks to make sure the feed is good, it's parsed okay, everything's looking good so far. I can go into advanced settings if I like, just click that link and it opens up. And there's a lot of settings here. I'll go through them for you. The first thing is how often it should check for new posts. The options are as short as every 30 minutes to as long as every 24 hours. What you should do is set this option based on how often you post to your blog. If you only post once every few days, you probably want to set it for every 24 hours. If you post quite often, you could set it for a quicker frequency. Right now I'm going to leave it set to every hour. This here lets you post up to 5 updates at a time. So if you check, for example, every 24 hours, but you post maybe 3 blog posts a day, you'd want to set this to a high number so all of those blog posts are tweeted. Right now, I'm just going to leave it set to 1. Then you could tell what you want it to include. The title only, which is what I usually use, the title and description, which starts to give the introductory text to the blog post, or just the description, which is that introductory text to the blog post. I usually keep it set to title only, so that's what I'll set here. And then you need to tell it whether or not you want to include a link to the post, which is probably what you'd want to do. What's the purpose of tweeting about it if you don't link to it? So you'd want to leave that turned on. You can also choose a shortening service to use with this. I'll leave it set to Bitly. You could choose any other service that you like. And if you use one of these services, you can click a link to make additional settings for it. I'm going to skip that right now. You could sort posts by the publish date or some other coding that's inside the blog posts. Most cases, it's going to be the publishing date. You can also have some introductory text that appears before each tweet, before the actual name of the post and the link. So, for example, I might want to start off by saying new blog post with a space. And then you can also do a suffix at the end, meaning some text that appears after the link to the blog post. And I'm going to leave that blank here. The other thing you can do here is include keyword filters that will filter posts using the keywords that you specify. And that's a really advanced feature I'm not going to do. So with this set the way I like it, I'm going to click Continue to Step 2. And now what it's asking me is which services I want to put this on. And you could put it on all of these services here. The one that I'm concerned with is Twitter, so I'll click that. And now what I can do here is I can set it up to work with Twitter. So I need to authenticate Twitter so that it knows about my Twitter account. I'll click this button. And I'll tell Twitter to allow Twitter feed to access my Twitter account. And now in this menu here under step 1, it asks me which account, and it knows which account I have. If I had multiple accounts, they'd all appear here. I just want that account. Scroll down a little bit more. And I can enter, if I like, different tags that'll appear with this, and I don't need to use any of that, so I'll just leave that blank. I just want to click Create Service. So now, right now, that is set up so that the blog posts will be going to this Twitter account, and it's active. Now, as Stacy posts to her blog, every time she posts a blog entry and it gets saved, it sits there and it waits until Twitter feed comes along and it checks the feed. We've got it set for every hour, so it would take a little while for Twitter feed to actually check for a blog post. But when it does, it would automatically appear on her blog, and we can try this. So I'm going to create a new post for Stacy. And I'm just going to tell my blog readers about Twitter feed and how great it is. And then once I publish that, it goes to the blog. And you can click the View Post button to see it. Now this won't appear immediately on Twitter. It needs to be updated with Twitter. And again, the shortest amount of time that you can have is 30 minutes, so it's probably not going to be here yet. But it should come in a little while, and when it does, refreshing the Twitter homepage will display it. So now some time has passed, and I just refreshed the window, and sure enough, you can see the post right here. I need to point out here that if you're using WordPress.com's built-in Publicize feature to tweet links to new blog posts, you shouldn't use Twitter feed too. Doing so would result in duplicate tweets. Use one or the other. I use Twitter feed to automate the notification of new blog posts on my Twitter account. Because Twitter feed supports multiple RSS feeds and is highly customizable, it's a great tool for getting the job done.